Hey, do you want to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights? More importantly, do you want to talk about the roster for the Vegas Golden Knights as the 2025-2026 season? Well, we're going to be doing that here on this episode of Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and this is Season 4 of Vegas Hockey Hub, and I am looking forward to discussing all of the important players on this team and talking about the important details about this organization and the roster itself on this episode of Vegas Hockey Hub. And this is going to be a real fun episode, and we're going to be breaking down everything, including the Vegas Golden Knights roster, and we'll be doing all of that after this quick message.
PR Connections Radio presents this episode of the PR Connections podcast is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Now, the way this episode is going to be done and how the process is going to be with this episode, breaking down the Vegas Golden Knights roster, is that we will start with the forwards first, then we will go to defensemen, and then we will go with the goaltending last as we are breaking down the Vegas Golden Knights roster and talking about all of this on this episode. But we will start out with the forwards, and we will talk about the most important forward on this team, and we'll be doing all of that here on this episode of Vegas Hockey Hub. Now, when it comes to Jack Eichel, the guy who has really been the Golden Knights team MVP almost every time he has been on the ice for Vegas since they acquired him from Buffalo all those years ago, and there is no doubt in anybody's mind that when you are considering players who are over a point per game, Jack Eichel is one of the first players that come to mind. When it comes to the entire NHL itself, and you're naming the top 10, top 15, top 20 players in the league, Jack Eichel is going to be on that list. There are going to be Vegas Golden Knights fans who are going to try to convince you he's a top 10 player in the league. Analytically, you can make an argument there because of how impactful Jack Eichel is on the ice. This is somebody who has been averaging over a point per game, pretty much the last 2 seasons that the Vegas Golden Knights have had Jack Eichel. This is someone who, he can give you 90 to 100 points every single season when he plays an entire campaign. Now, the only question mark about Jack Eichel, the only negative about Jack Eichel throughout his tenure during the NHL is his injury concerns, is him missing time in the NHL. Now, last year, he only missed select few games. He had 94 points on the year, could have broken 100 if he played all 82. But yes, he did miss even a couple of games last year, but that was one of the most healthy seasons that Jack Eichel had. This year, let's say that Jack Eichel does what Jack Eichel did a few years back. He misses stretches of time. That could be a possibility. With Jack Eichel, he will still be over a point per game. He could possibly still be the franchise leader in points and in assists at year's end despite missing time. That's a possibility. But with Jack Eichel, do I expect him to have over 90 points? The answer is it depends on how many games Jack Eichel plays. If Jack Eichel plays over 60 games, it's plausible to see him be a guy who's still averaging over a point per game into 1.5 point per game territory with Jack Eichel. But it just depends on how many games he plays, because that has been the main critique, the main negative against Jack Eichel is that he does miss time. He does suffer injuries. He did that in Buffalo, and he has done that in Vegas as well. But when Jack Eichel is on the ice, you have no doubt about it. He'll get you some goals. He's going to get you a bunch of assists, but he will be one of, if not the team MVP for the Vegas Golden Knights. But the only person that could beat him in that category when it comes to assists, the only person who could beat Jack Eichel when it comes to the points column would be this guy right here. And Vegas Golden Knights fans are getting real acquainted with this player that's coming up. The shiny new item the Vegas Golden Knights have acquired, the new jersey that is being picked up this season with Vegas Golden Knights fans, regardless if you're at the Armory or regardless if you are, at the Arsenal. When it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, Mitch Marner was all the talk this offseason. Mitch Marner was a guy that's supposed to be a key impact player for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is somebody who spent his entire career in Toronto and then makes the big sign and trade with your Vegas Golden Knights. And it blew up the NHL. Toronto fans are still salty and butthurt about the fact that Mitch Marner is no longer a Toronto Maple Leaf. Well, hey, Toronto fans, too bad he's now in Vegas, so deal with it. But when it comes to Mitch Marner, he is another player similar to Jack Eichel, where he will get you a bunch of assists. I mean, keep in mind, Mitch Marner just came off a 100-point season with Toronto. Mitch Marner has been consistently averaging 80, 90, now 100 points when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Now he's coming over to Vegas, and he is going to be with Jack Eichel. He's going to be with players like Ivan Barbashev, and even if he's put on different lines, we've seen, when it comes to guys like Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev, how adjusted and how flexibility is when it comes to the Golden Knights and their lineup changes. Mitch Marner is going to fit very well into the Golden Knights organization. Do I think that he is going to get to 100 points in Vegas? Only if he has like 70 freaking assists. Okay? If Mitch Marner can get to like 80 assists, 75, 70, and Mitch Marner can get to 30 goals, and yeah, I'd say that he could probably get to 100 points with the Vegas Golden Knights. But realistically, I say that Mitch Marner, if he gets, let's say, 60 assists, okay? If Mitch Marner gets to like 60 assists and he gets around 20, 25 goals for Vegas, you know what? 85 points, that is nothing to scoff at, especially for a first-year guy with the Vegas Golden Knights. If he, let's just say, goes for a 25-70, or a 20-65, if you're going to be around that category, that is what is expected from Mitch Marner. That's the type of deal that Vegas signed to bring over Mitch Marner. So when it comes to Jack Eichel, when it comes to Mitch Marner, I mean, this is going to be your top two players and the most likely favorites to be MVP for the team for the Vegas Golden Knights this year. Anybody who plays fantasy hockey, you would know that Mitch Marner and Jack Eichel are going to be among the top people selected from the Vegas Golden Knights in fantasy. But there is going to be one more person on that top line we do need to talk about, because this year could actually be a shining moment for this player, but it depends on how well he does in the first and second half of the year. And of course, I'm going to be talking about the other lines mate that's going to be with these guys. Now, Ivan Barbashev has been an interesting case for the Vegas Golden Knights because, yes, when he first got to Vegas, he helped them win a Stanley Cup championship. He helped the Vegas Golden Knights hoist Lord Stanley. And then after, that trade deadline acquisition being one of the best trade deadline acquisitions the Vegas Golden Knights have ever had, he then signs an extension. He goes to Vegas being on that top line. And it's been mixed results with Ivan Barbashev. There's some first half great success Ivan Barbashev has had. And then there has been second half of the year where he turns into a ghost and even gets delegated from being on the first line to being a middle six forward for Vegas. We even saw that come playoff time recently. So Ivan Barbashev is a very talented player. He's somebody that can get you at least 20 goals a year, very confidently in that assessment. Ivan Barbashev to 20 goals. But what's going to need to be asked of Ivan Barbashev, can you have a better production than Tomas Hertl? Can you have better production than Pavel Dorofeev? Can you have better production than somebody like a Mark Stone as a captain? Because with Ivan Barbashev being on that first line, it's now expected that you're going to have two all-star top 20 caliber players on that same line. And for majority of the year, Ivan Barbashev is going to be counted on to help the Vegas Golden Knights pick up some very valuable pieces when it comes to the Golden Knights organization. And when it comes to scoring and production on the offensive end, Ivan Barbashev is going to be counted on there. So overall, when it comes to Ivan Barbashev, I look at him and I say, being on that first line, there is going to be some expectations that he is going to have to be counted on with the Vegas Golden Knights. And, first half, we've seen him do some success, but it's that second half with Ivan Barbashev that we really need to count on. Now, the next player for the Vegas Golden Knights, I really want to talk about this guy because he is very important to the Golden Knights organization. It is not often that we see a villain from a different team join an organization and the fan base essentially accepts that person right away. It's really uncommon for a main rival to then turn around and have one of his best seasons in his career despite his current age. But we have actually witnessed this past year with Tomas Hertl how great he can be on that top six with Vegas. We have seen Tomas Hertl be a 30-goal scorer in a single season with Vegas. I mean, he had arguably the most goals last year with the Vegas Golden Knights. Him and Pavel Dorofeev were your top two goal scorers. Hey, what about this season? It's going to be rinse and repeat. Tomas Hertl, Pavel Dorofeev. Those are going to be your two guys who are going to be counted on to score 30 goals for Vegas. It is actually going to be an embarrassment, actually very disappointment, if Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeev don't get to 30 goals on the year, because we know talent-wise they can do it. Tomas Hertl, as a power play quarterback, is one of the most essential power play unit members the Vegas Golden Knights have. You need him on that power play. So for Tomas Hertl, 30 goals on the year, that is what we are looking at with Hertl. And when it comes to his performance, he can score goals. He's not going to put up that much in assists, but the goal scoring is what matters with him. Now, a little bit of a liability on defense, but every Golden Knights fan's already accepted that. We already know it. So overall, with Tomas Hertl, we just need him to keep scoring and scoring and scoring. And when it comes to scoring, a guy that could be, one of the most impactful members the Vegas Golden Knights have ever had, you can make an argument, is the best draft pick the Vegas Golden Knights have had that they've kept and actually made into a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. And we're going to be talking about Skorofeyev very soon, and let's talk about him right now. For a young player with the Vegas Golden Knights, for him to end up becoming the player he has been, it has been remarkable to see the rise of Pavel Dorofeev. To go from underrated as a prospect, a top 5 prospect in the Golden Knights organization, then cracking the roster, being a part-time guy, and then finally earning a full-time situation and becoming a vital part of the middle six, then top 6 with the Vegas Golden Knights. Pavel Dorofeev, and this is a contract year for him. Do not forget this. Next year, Pavel Dorofeev, there is a chance when it comes to free agency, he's going to make as much money as you probably expect with Pavel Dorofeev, with the amount of goals they scored last year and the dang amount of goals he's scoring this year. So for Pavel Dorofeev, a 30-goal season, that's going to get you a nice payday this next offseason for Pavel Dorofeev. And for all Vegas Golden Knights fans, you better hope that he stays with the Golden Knights, because you cannot lose an asset like him. And I've made this tweet before, and our tweet at Vegas Hockey Hub. Every goal Pavel Dorofeyev is going to make is just another money is going to go up with every single goal. And that's with Pavel Dorofeyev. But to really round this out, let's talk about that top six and really a member that I feel like a lot of people should be talking about because it feels like he doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, a veteran, a Stanley Cup champion, someone who has played well over 500 NHL games in his career, gets bought out from St. Louis, signs a deal with the Vegas Golden Knights, and contributed very nicely on the back end of last year. And, regression is something that does happen with veterans. It is the risk you take when it comes to bringing in a guy and signing him to a deal as someone is in his 30s. But overall, with Brandon Saad, I look at him and go, if it doesn't work out and he does end up showing that regression this year, Brandon Saad could be replaced by a young guy. Brandon Saad could be, later on the back end of the season, especially in the second half, replaced with a guy like Trevor Connolly. In the second half, if he is starting to show that fatigue and really starting to show that he's gassed as a veteran in that second half. Because, look, when it comes to the first half, there's some times where if you're only scoring a couple of goals, you only have a couple of points on the year, they're going to make a change there. And overall, Brandon Saad, if it's a guy like Braden Bowman, or if it's a guy like Trevor Connolly, or if there's even a young player that's on that bottom, six that could earn its way into the top six, that's something that Vegas is going to have to do. But Brandon Saad being part of that middle six for Vegas, and, talking about the middle six and veterans, there is a player that got brought back to the Golden Knights organization. He's a fan favorite, but there's something we do need to talk about when it comes to that fan favorite. Now, there are people who love William Karlsson. There are fan base people who are part of the Misfits that love the fact that William Karlsson has been with the Golden Knights this entire time. But overall, William Karlsson having injury concerns, him missing time with the Vegas Golden Knights due to injuries, it kind of makes you wonder what the future is long term. Because when I'm saying that people are happy that he's back, because this is a William Karlsson that's supposed to be a player that on that middle six, he did play on the wing. At one point when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights during the playoffs, he was even not a center, but he was a wing. And there are people who are hoping that he can come back to that level he was not even 2 years ago when he cracked 30 goals on the year. But for William Karlsson, it's going to really depend on availability. And more importantly, with William Karlsson, you got to ask yourself the important question, and that question is, if he is a half-season player and you're making around $6 million, does Vegas move on from a misfit? Let's say that the Vegas Golden Knights, once again, you have a half a season of William Karlsson. He gets you maybe 10 goals on the year, around there. Is this something that you look at and go, can we keep him for the fan base, or do we make a decision and let him go? Because the line mate I'm about to talk about now, they did do that. But they brought him back. And when it comes to this line mate, this is a player that the Vegas Golden Knights, and I hate to say it, but he's a top six, middle six guy, but he might be, one and done. He might be somebody they brought back to be with the organization, be back home in Vegas. But if he doesn't get like 15 goals, 20 goals on the year, if he's somebody who gets like 35 points at year's end, it might seem like the Riley Smith situation with the Vegas Golden Knights, despite how much people love him, despite the fact that he's one of my favorite players on the Vegas Golden Knights. You really got to sit there and ask yourself, when it comes to the veterans on the middle six, guys like a Brandon Saad, guys like a Riley Smith, guys like a William Karlsson, If they do not exceed expectations, regardless if it's that first half or second half, this is going to be a decision where the Vegas Golden Knights have young talent. They have Trevor Connolly, like I said. They have Braden Bowman down in Henderson. This is, when it comes to Henderson Silver Knights, when you have all these players who are now going to be NHLers come soon, there's just a lot of questions need to be asked when it comes to Carlson, Smith, and Saad. Obviously, I wish them the absolute best. But that middle six, with all the veterans, there's going to be a lot of question marks there. And one of the biggest question marks actually has to do with the final guy I'm talking about. Because when it comes to this guy, we all know what he can do. We all understand what Mark Stone means to the team. We are all aware of the fact that he's the captain. That he is a guy who averages over a point per game. But we have seen last year, we have seen years before, that Mark Stone does not play a full 82 games. But let's say Mark Stone plays over 60 games, and he gets about 75 points. That is great for Vegas. But is he going to be a guy that is going to be a middle six forward or a top six forward for Vegas? Going to be a player that the Vegas Golden Knights organization is going to say, hey, he is our captain. He's going to score over 70 points a year. We can trust that. Or let's say that forbid he has an injury that actually causes him to lose more games than that. Does Mark Stone end up becoming a situation where the Vegas Golden Knights look at it and go, hey, Mark Stone defensively, one of the best two-way forwards in all hockey. As a captain, a leader in the locker room. But how many games is he going to miss this year? So that's really the question you got to ask of Mark Stone, is the availability side of it. Similar to William Karlsson, like I said before. Similar to even like a guy like Jack Eichel, his injury concerns throughout his career. So with the Vegas Golden Knights, this, situation with the veterans, that is a very important question you have to ask yourself when it comes to Vegas. Now, the next two players are going to be players that are having some underrated years with Vegas. They're guys who are in their, late 20s, but they do provide value to Vegas. So with King Kolesar, he is somebody who, had a dozen goals this past year. King Kolesar becoming more of a leader with the Vegas Golden Knights. When you're seeing him during warm-ups, when you're seeing him during the, when they're doing the pucks pre-game with the Vegas Golden Knights with King Kolesar, you're seeing him in the middle. He's actually dishing the puck to players, actually doing the warm-ups and everything. King Kolesar has been progressing at a good level for Vegas. Yes, he does bring physicality. Yes, King Kolesar can fight if he needs to step up for his teammates. But what the question mark's going to be with King Kolesar is, unless you are going to deem him as a fourth liner for his entire career, or if he is going to be a fourth liner for life, then it's going to be hard for you to look at King Kolesar and see his stats, whatever his stats are at year's end, and go, all right, let's say Kolesar gets 5 goals. I kind of would, be shocked by that, but still, let's say Kolesar gets 5 goals and he gets 15 assists. All right, 20 points for a fourth liner, that's okay. But if you're expecting more from that, that's something you got to ask yourself about. So King Kolesar, I like him. I think that he's good for the organization. But his statistics are going to be an interesting part of this year, depending on what you're asking for him. Brett Howden. I mean, this is a guy who had, a breakout year this past year. I mean, this is somebody who's going to get you about 15 goals a year with Brett Howden. But being on that fourth line, you kind of have to ask yourself, why is he on the fourth line? What is the reason why a guy like Brett Howden is on that bottom six? Because with Brett Howden, we see that he does have talent. He can score goals. We've seen that in the past, year and a half. But with Brett Howden being on that bottom six, I mean, we've seen it be a middle six at times. But overall, with Brett Howden being a bottom 6 forward, we've seen him on the 4th line. We've seen him on the 3rd line. And that's what Brett Howden has been for majority of his tenure with the Vegas Golden Knights, with a few exceptions. So overall, Brett Howden, I look at him and I go, this is going to be a player that, hopefully he does better, but it's going to be kind of hard to see him as anything more than just a middle 6, bottom 6 guy at best. Now, this is Colton Sissons, the guy they got from Nashville in the Nick Hague trade. And, he's going to bring some durability to the bottom 6. I really do not expect much from Colton Sissons, except, him being a guy that will try to play every single day. He's going to be a member of this organization that's going to try to be productive on that end. And then, when it comes to defense, this is going to be the interesting part of Vegas, because there's going to be some veterans that are not going to put up great numbers like a Braden McNabb, but he has played so many games for Vegas. He has been the lifer and the blood of the Vegas Golden Knights on defense. So Braden McNabb being with the organization, we have seen him with this organization for so long. It's kind of hard to see him not be with Vegas in the future, but it just all depends on what his stats are going to be this year, because, the fact is his stats have shown some form of regression over the past year and a half. But I think from a locker room perspective, you're going to keep him on the organization itself. But, when it comes to guys who are going to be part of this organization for the long-term future, this is a guy that Vegas is going to count on heavily this year in Shea Theodore. Now, injury concerns, we have seen injury concerns affect Shea Theodore for the past year. Shea Theodore, if he stays healthy, we know what he can do. But, he has had injury problems. We saw during the Four Nations face-off, this past year that he got hurt there. He had to miss time. We have seen him get into situations where he gets hurt in a game and comes out. So for Shea Theodore, that's the situation there. I also do say when it comes to one player that cannot regress this year, but I'm hoping that he doesn't, and that is Zach Whitecloud. Zach Whitecloud has shown potential. He has shown upside, but there's also been some times where he has had a rough stretch of 10, 15 games where Zach Whitecloud is just not it with the Vegas Golden Knights. We have seen that in the past. Defensively, speaking of somebody that's going to have to step up for this team and somebody that I'm looking forward to seeing him do well is Noah Hannafin. After all, it says the guy they traded a first-round pick for. And Noah Hannafin, I like what he has done defensively. He is someone who can be a top 25 defenseman in the NHL. But for Noah Hannafin, really the main answer, the main question you got to ask yourself is that if you're Noah Hannafin, can you be the 1A, 1B defenseman alongside Shea Theodore? Or is this going to be a situation where you're going to have to count on him to be that number 1 and for Theodore to be number 2? Or vice versa. Theodore will be number 1 and Hannafin will be number 2. Now, this guy is a new member of the Vegas Golden Knights for this season. Jeremy Lauzon, a former, Seattle Kraken, former Nashville Predator. This is someone who's going to bring a big body, someone who's very physical, racks up a bunch of penalty minutes. Now, I will be very shocked if he has more than 10 points this year because point scoring is really not in his repertoire when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. But Jeremy Lauzon, I see him and I go, okay. Jeremy Lauzon, he is somebody that if there's going to be a fight, it's going to be him or it's going to be Kolazar. When it comes to a big play and there's going to be a big hit, it's going to be Lauzon. And then I'm happy to see him in the lineup. And this is going to be number 6, Caden Korczak. I hope him the absolute best. And overall, Caden Korczak, I say that him doing his first full-time season with Vegas, I wish him the absolute best. Now, when it comes to the goaltending situation, I'm not even going to sit here and try to pretend that this is going to be a situation where this is going to be great for Vegas or it's going to be bad for Vegas. I look at this and say, you see the goalies right here. You see them on the screen. If you think that they are going to be some of the best goalies in the NHL, that's your opinion. If you think that they are underwhelming and below average, that's your opinion. If you're looking at this and saying the Vegas Golden Knights are going to have an issue at goaltender, well, that is your opinion. I'm leaving this up to you because from a goaltending perspective, this is so difficult to even chart when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. So just want to talk about the roster real quick here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And until next time, have a good one and go Knights go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.